Right now, as the sun sets over the Rio Grande, something unprecedented is unfolding on America's southern flank that could redefine the very fabric of our union. One of the most influential governors in the country, Greg Abbott of Texas, just escalated a long-simmering standoff by announcing on a national broadcast that his state will no longer recognize federal immigration enforcement directives, effectively daring the Biden administration, or whoever holds power in D.C., to send in the troops. You might dismiss this as tough talk from a border state politician playing to his base, but what you are about to uncover is a calculated move that is already mobilizing National Guard units and private militias with whispers of armed patrols stretching from El Paso to Brownsville. Today we're diving deep into exactly what Abbott said, why the national media is tiptoeing around the explosive implications, and what this escalating deep game signals about a fracturing America where states are treating federal law like an optional suggestion. Picture this. You're scrolling through your feed late at night, the weight of another day pressing down, when a clip pops up, a silver-haired governor, standing resolute against a dusty sunset backdrop, declaring that Texas will handle its own borders, its own rules, even if it means blocking federal agents at checkpoints or rerouting resources away from Washington-mandated protocols. The anchor cuts away awkwardly, muttering about states' rights in a divided era, and life moves on. But this isn't theater. This is the governor of a state larger than most countries, with a $2.4 trillion economy and 30 million souls, openly challenging the supremacy of federal authority on one of the most volatile issues we face. And according to the latest betting markets places where sharp money, not just polls, predicts outcomes, Abbott's approval ratings are surging, positioning him as a frontrunner for bigger things, maybe even a 2028 presidential run. To grasp why this moment feels like a slow-motion car crash, we need to step back and meet the man at the center. Greg Abbott isn't some firebrand newcomer. He's a battle-tested Republican wheelchair bound from a tree accident in his youth that forged a steely resolve, a former Texas attorney general who spent years suing the Obama administration over everything from healthcare to environmental regs. Raised in the heartland of Longview, Texas, he embodies that rugged individualism, the kind that built railroads and oil empires but now fuels a narrative of federal overreach. Abbott's no stranger to controversy. He's deployed buoys laced with razor wire in the river, bussed migrants to blue cities as a political jab, and turned the border into a symbol of resistance. But these aren't the rants of a fringe operator. They're the playbook of a savvy operator who's mastered turning frustration into firepower. He wraps his defiance in the language of protection, sovereignty, security, words that echo like thunder in towns where families have watched crossings spike and fentanyl pour in. Who could argue with safeguarding your home? It's as unassailable as defending your child's bedroom from intruders. Yet beneath that appeal lies a radical reconfiguration of how power flows in this country, from a unified nation to a patchwork of fiefdoms where the strongest wills prevail. Let's rewind to that broadcast, because the devil and the danger is in the details. It was a primetime slot on Fox, but syndicated wide enough to hit every cable household. The host, seasoned and sympathetic, leans in. Governor, with migrant encounters hitting record highs and federal resources stretched thin, reports say Texas plans to withhold cooperation on ICE operations. Does that mean state troopers will stand down if feds show up? A pause, the camera tight on Abbott's unflinching gaze. Absolutely, he replies, voice steady as West Texas granite. Texas will enforce its own laws. If Washington won't secure the border, we will with our guard, our resources, our rules. No more waiting on D.C. bureaucrats who tie our hands while cartels run free. He didn't stop there. He invoked the 10th Amendment like a sacred oath, promising to sue to blockade, even to interpose state authority if federal agents overstep, a term straight out of nullification debates from the 1800s when stateside secession over tariffs, and the host, a nod, a pivot to commercials. No probing on logistics, no mention of the Posse Comitatus Act that bars domestic military use without invocation, no warning about the potential for blue-on-blue clashes between state and federal law enforcement. That silence isn't oversight. It's a symptom. This exchange didn't just ripple. It reverberated, with Arizona and Florida governors echoing support, vowing similar autonomy zones along their frontiers. Mount, a young agent from Ohio, a trooper from Lubbock, headlines screaming border bloodbath, the fallout. Immediate, DHES freezes, Texas grants billions in highway funds, disaster aid, education dollars crippling infrastructure in a state prone to floods and freezes. Abbott counters with emergency powers, raiding state coffers, but deficits balloon, businesses eye exodus. Supply chains snag as ports like Houston face federal audits. And internationally, Mexico protests the militarization, cartels exploit the discord with bolder runs, and allies like Canada tighten their own borders, whispering about America's unraveling reliability. This isn't hyperbole. It's history rhymed. Recall the Whiskey Rebellion of 1794, when Western farmers defied federal taxes, armed up, and Washington sent 13,000 militia to quash it, a stark reminder that defiance invites the full weight of the state. Or the sanctuary city battles of the 2010s, where Obama-era Dodge clawed back funds from non-cooperative locales, proving money talks when barricades don't, but scale that to a border crisis, and you're not tweaking budgets. You're testing sovereignty. You might wonder, is this just posturing? A bid for headlines in an election year? Fair question. Abbott's a survivor, impeached whispers from his AG days, a 2022 primary scrape that toughened his edge. He thrives on the underdog narrative, turning DC disdain into Texas pride. And yes, with midterms looming and Trump allies circling, this amps his brand as the anti-federal firewall, but rhetoric has a half-life. It breeds belief. Supporters, ranchers patrolling their spreads, vets in tactical gear start treating it as gospel, showing up at crossings with our 15s in support. Expectations harden. If Abbott wins re-election odds at 75% per markets, what then? Does he follow through, escalating 2 article for invocations for federal invasion aid? Or blink, eroding trust in a base that Saravi's confrontation? Either path erodes the center. The real gut-wrencher isn't the vow itself. It's the delivery, that unflappable certainty, as if charting a routine infrastructure bill, not courting constitutional Armageddon. The host shifted uneasily, eyes darting to producers, but no lifeline. Governor, doesn't this risk interagency violence? Crickets. How do you square state interdiction with federal treaties? Fade to break that evasion. It's the media's original sin in this saga. Once watchdogs, now wary of both sides-ism fatigue, outlets frame it as tensions rise without dissecting the dynamite. CNN loops the clip with Dem-heavy pundits decrying extremism, but skips the legal autopsy. Fox amplifies the heroism, ignoring the hypocrisy states' rights for borders, but federal bucks for everything else. This isn't balance. It's blindness, letting a narrative of us vs them metastasize unchecked. It eased like watching a surgeon suggest amputation for a sprain because it feels decisive UED demand. Wait, what's the prognosis? The alternatives? Yet here, the press nods along, terrified of alienating viewers in a polarized ecosystem where clicks chase outrage, not clarity. Zoom out, and this border gambit isn't a solo act. It's the overture to a symphony of state-federal fractures, Abbott's platform. Slashing ties to federal education mandates, opting out of EPA clean air rules, even floating a Texas Energy Independence Act that thumbs its nose at national grid standards. Layer in Florida's book ban battles overriding First Amendment precedents, or California's emissions edicts clashing with auto safety regs. It's a mosaic of mini rebellions, each chipping at the edifice. Proponents hail it as federalism reborn, a check on imperial DC fine, in theory. The 10th Amendment breathes life into that, but executed as vendetta? It unravels the interstate compact that lets you drive from sea to shining sea without passports. Economically, it's a time bomb. Texas ports handle 40% of U.S. imports. Hobble federal customs, and delays cascade Walmart shelves empty. Auto plants idle. Inflation ticks up nationwide. Socially, the scars deepen. Latino communities in border towns, caught in crossfire, report heightened fear, with trust in institutions plummeting. Polls show 62% of Texans back Abbott's stance, but dig deeper support craters among independents when armed standoff scenarios are floated. This is the emotional core, the quiet terror of division's toll. Families split by checkpoints, neighbors eyeing each other warily, the American dream curdling into regional grudges. Abbott's genius and peril lies in his sovereign shield rhetoric. Frame federal inaction as betrayal, and resistance becomes duty, not disruption, dissent. Labeled as soft on crime, elite coastal scorn, it's moral plating, not I want power, but I must protect the vulnerable. Brilliant because it transmutes self-interest into crusade. Echoes of the civil rights era, when states nullified integration, same tool, flipped script, but history indicts the wielders. Moral high ground crumbles under consequence. Consider the crafty invocation of icons. Abbott quotes Reagan on borders as walls of freedom, eliding how the Gipper balanced enforcement with amnesty paths. No pushback audiences cheer the familiarity, blind to the slight. Or the selective amnesia on states' rights. Texas took $17 billion in COVID relief, then cried foul on mandates. Hypocrisy. Sure, but unchallenged, it normalizes cherry picking. Here's an analogy to cut through the fog. Envision a family road trip. Dad's the driver, federal government, charting the route via GPS law. Uncle texts the state's gripes about detours, grabs the wheel for shortcuts, veering onto dirt roads, thrilling at first adventure. But soon, flat tires, lost hours, gas guzzled dry. The kid's citizens suffer most, carsick and stranded. Uncle Tex meant well, protecting the clan from big city traffic, but the destination blurs. True security? Coordinated navigation, not rogue swerves. That's governance. Shared burdens yield smoother paths. Abbott offers the thrill ride, promising empowerment, but delivers detours to dead ends. Now peer into the crystal ball because likelihoods, not hypotheticals, haunt us. Markets forecast a 55% shot at escalated enforcement by 2026, with ripple effects. Best case, DC sues, SCOTUS slaps down overreach as in Arizona v. US, 2012, Abbott pivots to victory through vigilance, tensions simmer, cred intact, but precedent set other states test limits on abortion funds, gun tracing, voting rolls, worst case, surge overwhelms, a flashpoint erupts, say, a disputed crossing. In Eagle Pass, feds invoke emergency powers, Abbott calls up guard. Optics explode, militias mobilize, Congress deadlocks, partisans bay for blood, and suddenly we're debating partition over prime time. Economically, Texas GDP dips to -3 short-term per think tank models, dragging national growth. Job losses hit 100,000 in logistics alone. Migrants, human collateral, face deadlier treks as routes militarize, and the psyche? A nation of 330 million fractures further blue enclaves hoard resources, red strongholds stockpile, the middle erodes into exhaustion. We've precedents. The 1990s militia movements fed off Waco Ruby Ridge grievances, birthing extremism that lingers, or sanctuary standoffs, where fund cuts spurred local economies. Two-teeter, forcing compromises laced with resentment. Good intentions securing homes, honoring oaths don't defy gravity. They crash against it, but the abyss stares back hardest at our democracy's core. This isn't red vs. blue theater. It's the audition for balkanization. With Trump eyeing returns post-2002 foreshadows loom, his border wall vows could greenlight state proxies, turning governors into satraps. Meanwhile, progressive havens like New York mull defying ICE on deportations, mirroring the playbook, the media, complicit in the quiet, chasing viral feuds over forensic fact checks. Academia demurs, fearing anti-federalist tags. Civic groups splinter along lines. Democracies don't topple in blaze. They fray thread by thread, nullification whispers becoming roars, reason yielding to regional reveries. I'm not preaching uniformity. Debates are oxygen, tax havens in Delaware. Pro-BEM, overreach on mandates. Rein it, but anchors matter. Federal supremacy isn't tyranny. It's the keel steadying our ship against storms. Ignore it, and we list, capsize. Governance demands trade-offs, not triumphs. Secure borders. Yes, via bipartisan bills, blending walls, tech pathways, not unilateral edicts. Abbott's vow skips that, offering catharsis over calculus. What birthed this beast? Real pain, undenied. Border towns bear brunt. Overdoses ravage families. Schools swell beyond capacity. Wages stagnate under shadow economies. When DC dithers record encounters, tepid enforcement locals seethe. Fix it or fold, they cry, and Abbott amplifies. Washington failed. Texas rises. Empathy surges. I've walked those dusty streets, heard the pleas. Frustrations valid in affordable homes, opioid ghosts, a sense the system's rigged for insiders. Radical bids tempt when incrementalism idles, but demolitions thrill fades. Reconstructions grind endures, tear down without blueprint. Rubble, not renewal, Abbott's allure. That rhetorical alchemy, autonomy as armor, policies aren't preferences. They're imperatives, obstruct feds. Not politics, patriotism, who dares demur without donning traitor garb. Debate dies in absolutes. Nuance flees, seen it in the clip. Host queries communism, light labels on his energy, nationalization teases. No, states' rights conservatism, Abbott quips. Accepted, sans scrutiny, no nod to how it apes central planning, just rebranded for ranches. Labels lie when actions betray. Control key sectors, flout federal pacts, and its sovereignty with a side of supremacy. He trots out Jefferson on compact theory, as if the sage of Monticello greenlit modern standoffs. Untouched crowds roar, mistaking echo for endorsement. Jefferson railed against kings, built coalitions for union, not confederacies of convenience. Co-opting him? Its intellectual slight, draping defiance in founding fathers' robes. The crowd buys, emotions eclipsing evidence because feeling fortified trumps fact-checking. Emotions forge movements, abolition, suffrage but untethered. Their wildfires, scorching indiscriminately. Analogy time, picture a feverish patient, chills racking. Doc 1, I feel your agony. Here's antibiotics, endless supply, no questions, relief floods, heroic healer. Doc 2, pain's real. Treatments, targeted rest, fluids, monitored doses for cure, harsher. Hearing but healing follows. One soothes symptoms, breeds resistance. The other roots out cause. Abbott's the fever feeder, feds poisoned us. I'll purge with state serum, unlimited. It validates, vilifies outsiders, vows victory sans sweat, comforting. Utterly curative, catastrophic. It doesn't stem flows humanely, integrate newcomers productively, or heal communities scarred. It amplifies animus, concentrates clout in capitals, fosters fealty over freedom, convince folks they're besieged needing a bulwark, and they'll back bulwarks ever bolder, each pledging more, procuring less, prying power incrementally. Implementation's the inferno. Abbott's favored markets say 65% re-elect, wielding real reins over real realms. press the button. Optimist, courts curb, Fed's finance funding tweaks, Abbott claims moral win, base buzzes, but Fisher's form states experiment on everything from pot legalization to pension portability, eroding national norms. Pessimist, crisis crests, a botched bus sparks skirmish, Guard vs. Patrol, headlines howl, Congress convenes in chaos, impeachment murmurs for Biden holdovers, Abbott's martyrdom mythologized, economy, Texas tourism tanks who vacations in tinderbox, ag exports embargoed in retaliation, ripple recession hits heartland hard, migrants, deadlier dashes, humanitarian horrors mount, institutions. Trust torpedoed Gallup polls already show federal faith at 25% lows, not doomsaying. Documenting, echoes abound, sanctuary sanctions starved services in 2017, forcing fiscal feints. Nullification nods in Missouri's gun laws bypassed ATF, breeding black market booms. Intentions insulate not from inertia's inexorable, deeper dread. This as democracy's diagnostic. Red fortresses rise in Sunbelt sprawl, blue bastions bunker in coasts. Media silos, academia aligns, NGOs niche. Republics rot not in revolts but regressions, fringe fissures to fault lines, emotion edging out empirics. Clarion call, not conformity but constancy, varied visions vital. Violate vitals like supremacy and vessel veers. Rule of law, non-negotiable, constitution. Compass, not convenience, leaders. Honest on hurdles, not hucksters hawking heavens, trade-offs. Taboo no more, like architecture. Quibble on facades, fixtures, flair that's flavor, but footings. Forgo M for fantasy floor plans and facade folds. Physics persists. Politics parallels. Forge within frame, flourish follows. Flout it, foundations fail, remedies. Rooted resolve. First, reality reconnaissance, pledges pixie dusted. Probe provenance, borders bolted, billions untouched. Balderdash budgets bind. Second, interrogate intent. How? Hurdles. Hazards. Handwaves herald hubris. Third, media muster, absurdities aired Sanzassi. Amplify alternatives fund fearless forums fostering forensics, power agnostic. Fourth, foremost, revere reconstruction's rhythm, progress. Plotting, piecemeal, predicated on priors. Lacks limelight, lacks likes, but lasts. Nations, nobles, rails, riveting coasts. Rights, riveting races, weren't wreckers ranting rupture. They were welders, wise to weaving wisely, honoring heritage while honing horizons. That's stonic, not sepia sentimentalism, but scaffolding, sensible, innovation. Invigorating, augment? Absolutely, anchored in actuality, not animosity. Heavy haul, this stake sting, simplicity seduces. But here's heartbeat. Such showdowns governors gambling at governance's guardrails, guardians glancing away delineate destiny, laws land or loudmouths lottery. Verdict? Voters, via vigilance heating hollered, not just hummed, holistics over highlights, heterodoxy overheard. Future? Forged by faithful followers of facts, favoring function over fervor. So summons, scrutinize scripts, not sizzle, sample sources spanning spectrum, solicit scrutiny, state secession light, sensible or sabotage, instincts, invaluable if illogical, it is, then transmit, not tussles truth-seeking, not triumphs, bad blueprints, bested by better blueprints, broadcast boldly, not partisan pissing, practical vs performative, pact vs pandemonium, prudence vs precipice, value gleaned, gratitude's gesture, like lend legs to luminosity, subscribe sequels on sideline sagas await, comment, border brinkmanship bluster or breaking point. Truth? Tomorrow's tapestry threads through these talks, when truth tenders triumph over timid. Thanks for tuning. Tenacious, thoughtful recall, reality reigns, reckoning's rhythm relentless. Query? Quantum of quandary before we recalibrate.